Hey, I'm Melanie, personal trainer, nutrition coach, and creator of Female Fitness Systems with over a decade of experience working with women in person and online. My mission is to help you become your strongest self at any age. Welcome to today's strength session. The strength sessions are a series of videos that are designed to empower you with the knowledge you need of weight training fundamentals so that you get better results from your workouts. Today's topic is progressive overload. Now, I think that progressive overload is widely understood at the basic level, but when it comes to actually implementing it in your own training, it can be intimidating and confusing. So what I'm going to do today is give you a quick explanation of progressive overload, but I'm going to spend the majority of the time demonstrating how I actually do this by showing you a couple of exercises and giving you a few options for how you can start to progress to the next level of weight. Before we get into those exercise demonstrations, let's quickly talk about what progressive overload is. So imagine your muscles are like students at school. Those students need to get increasingly harder work so that they keep getting smarter over time. And your muscles are the same way. You need to increasingly challenge them if you want them to develop. And this isn't about becoming big and bulky. This is really important if you just want to change your shape a little bit, because to change your shape, you need to build muscle strategically in certain areas. And to build muscle, you need to be challenging your muscles over time. So how does this work in practice? Let's say that you first start lifting weights and you're doing an exercise like bicep curls, and you can comfortably lift 10 pounds for 10 to 12 reps. That's a good start, but over time you have to increase that weight, because if you don't, your muscles are going to get used to that weight, you'll plateau and you'll stop getting results. This is something that's really missing in those group fitness classes, in follow along workouts, in HIIT workouts, and that's why so many ladies feel like they aren't getting results on these programs, because while you might lose a bit of weight at the start, you're not building the shape that you want, and you're not changing your body in a strategic way. So that's why it's really important that you implement progressive overload in your training. Now let's get into those exercise demonstrations. What I'm going to do today is show you two different exercises and give you two options for how you can increase to the next level of weight. And what I'll do at the end is explain to you how you might choose between the two options that I'm going to show you. So the first exercise I'm going to show you is a reverse press, which targets your rear delts. As you'll see in the video, this is done on a slight lean forward with wide hands, which helps to target the rear delts rather than the front of your shoulders. Now, the ideal weight for me with this exercise is 9 kilos, because by the third and fourth rounds, I'll start to run out of steam and fall short of being able to do the 10 to 12 reps. That's usually the goal when you're trying to build muscle. Now, sorry, I am going to talk in kilos today because that's what I have in my gym, but the basic idea is the same regardless of whether you work in pounds or kilos. So when I do these at the gym with 9s, my form is much better than what you'll see today. But at home, I don't have 9s, I have 7s and 10s. This is a big jump for a lot of ladies, so bear in mind that I am much stronger than the average female. And for me, this jump is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. It would be much better for most ladies to have smaller increments of weights, especially to help protect your joints as you get older. But what I've been doing when I am training at home and I don't have those 9s is I've been starting with a set of 7s to make sure I'm warm for the 10s. Then I have a big rest because it's really important that I'm recovered enough to lift the 10s. And then I do a couple of sets with the 10s. Now you can see here in the video that when I'm using the 10s, my form isn't as good, and I can't actually get the same lean forward as I do when I'm using the 9s at the gym, but I can get about 8 decent reps and I still feel the right muscles working. By the third and the fourth sets, depending on how many I'm doing, my muscles are absolutely exhausted from those 10s. So now I can use the 7s on the third and fourth sets, and they will actually feel super heavy because I've exhausted my muscles using those big 10s. So those 7s might actually feel like 9s now. So that's one way you can progress the amount of weight you lift. Start using that heavier weight on those first sets. Make sure you're taking the full rest time because you do need to recover so that you are strong enough to try that heavy weight again. And then on your last sets, you can go back to that weight that was getting kind of easy for you, because it is going to feel harder now because you'll be exhausted. Now, option 2 that I'm going to show you is actually very similar. I'm going to start with the heavier weight that I'm trying to progress to. And on the 3rd and the 4th sets, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep that heavier weight for as many reps as I can do with good form. Then I'm going to quickly drop it, and I'm going to grab the weight that was reasonably getting quite easy for me. I'm going to grab that weight and finish the set. Now, as I mentioned, I am going to explain to you after this when you might choose between them. So don't worry if you're a little bit confused. Now, the second exercise that I'm going to show you is a rear delt fly, because I know it's one that a lot of ladies struggle with. It's really hard to progress weights when you're training rear delts because they tend to be quite weak. At least they are until you've been doing my programs for a while. So also a quick note on form. I like laying on the bench when I do these because it just keeps my form better. It just means you don't have to think about your back or anything else. You can just focus on your rear delts. So when I'm doing these, I choose 2 sets of weights. The one that I'm reasonably comfortable doing 10 to 12 reps with, which for me is 5 kilos. And the one that I'm trying to progress to, which is 6 kilos. Just like in the previous example, I make sure I'm warm, and then I do a couple sets with the 6s, but I will fall short of being able to do that 10 to 12 rep range. So what I do on the last 2 sets is I do as many as I can with good form with those big 6s, which is usually going to be about 6 or 7 reps. Then I drop the weights and really quickly grab the 5s and finish the set to 12. And sometimes I can't even get to 12 because I'm really exhausted at this point, but I can get usually close to 10 to 12. Now you might be wondering, why don't I just do this with every set? Why don't I do that drop with all 4 sets if I'm doing 4 sets? And the reason for that is that I really want to make sure that I'm giving myself enough energy so that I can really start working that bigger weight. And if I was always using the 5s, it would just be way too tiring. Usually when you're doing things like drop sets or little techniques like this, you don't do it for every set because it's just way too much fatigue for you. So it's something you would only do for 1 or maybe 2 sets when you're doing an exercise. Now, how do you choose between them? And I was trying to figure out how I would explain this to you before I got ready for this video. And I realized that I probably use option 1 when I'm doing exercises that require really heavy weights, because dropping to another set of weights is harder because both sets of weights are really heavy. So you can imagine if you're doing something like a really heavy chest press, dropping something like a 20 kilo and picking up a 17 kilo, well, both of those are really heavy and really hard to lift. So it would be quite difficult, and it would be extremely hard to maintain good form. And so what I do on those really heavy lifts is I probably tend more towards option 1. And then what I do on exercises where I'm using slightly lighter weights, things like the rear delt flies or side lateral raises or a lot of tricep and bicep exercises, is I'll probably be more inclined to do option 2. But there are no real clear rules, and you can mix it up and just play with it. Now, just a couple other things I wanted to mention about progressive overload. The first is that there are many other ways to progress. You can focus on moving slower or having better form, but I really just wanted you to understand the basic concept today and understand how to jump to the next level of weight, because that is really the basic idea of progressive overload. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I do tend to approach progressive overload differently when it comes to lower body training. And that's because I'm not necessarily trying to build a lot of muscle in my legs, and a lot of the ladies that I work with are concerned about getting big muscular legs. So I do actually approach it differently when it comes to lower body training. I tend to use it more just for glute work and not focus on progressive overload for things like squats and those sorts of things. And that's actually a lot safer for you if you're training at home alone without a trainer as well. It's probably better for your knees. So I just wanted to mention that today in case you're wondering. I would be happy to make a video about that. If you're interested, you can let me know in the comments of this one. And then finally, I wanted to remind you that the women that I work with are proving every day that it is possible to become your strongest self at any age. So if you want to get started with your own transformation, head over to my website, femalefitnesssystems.com, and check out my programs there. Remember, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so you catch future strength sessions and future videos from me. Thank you so much for your support. I will see you again soon.